tell us a little bit about that journey? What would you say, since you have been a clinician, you've been at the front lines, what does a leader need to be successful if they started their career as a frontline clinician and then now they're in this leadership administrative role?
It's a really good question. I've wanted to be a physiotherapist from a very young age. That I was doggedly determined that I was going to get into physiotherapy school. I lined up everything, my schooling, my volunteer work, my part-time jobs, everything was geared to be into physiotherapy because that was my passion. I really wanted to make a difference for the people we serve. And then I got into physiotherapy and practiced, as you say, as a clinician, and it was the most humbling privilege to be able to put your hands on a person and be able to make a difference for them, whether it was reducing pain, increasing range of motion, increasing functional ability, sometimes just talking to them and having that ability. The opportunity to go into a leadership type role actually fell on my plate. It wasn't something I applied for. It wasn't actually a decision that I sat down initially, at any rate. One of my boss's boss at the time came to me and said, Donna, would you be interested in taking on an interim role as a program director? And, always up to an opportunity to try something new, different. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll head down that path. I'll see what it's like. And what I learned was where things were the same and where they were different. As a physiotherapist, it didn't matter if I had 20 people in my gym or if I had 40 people on my list that I had to see in the hospital. I tried really hard to focus on the person I was treating at that particular time. That person was the most important person. When I went into a leadership role, it was in many ways very similar. I was focusing then on the team members, on the staff, and they were the most important. But at the end of the day, what they were doing was impacting the patients that we were serving. So in many ways, there was a nice alignment between what I had been doing clinically, different but aligned, and what you can do in a leadership role. Then it became a question as to whether I wanted to stay in leadership administration and whether I wanted to, actually at the time, it was either research, expertise in the clinical practice, or stay in leadership. And I had lots of pressure to try to go into that research role. No, why would you stay in management? Management, no, don't go there, they're bad. But I really loved the tension that you had with every day being different. Mm-hmm. You never really knew what was going to come your way. Mm-hmm. That made it so fantastic.
And I love how you said you had a lot of pressure against going into management, because that is often the case. I also started as a clinician. I did occupational therapy. And when you're going over to the other side, it's like, oh, don't go there. How did you know that it was time to transition and it was what you were meant to do?
I think it's probably a little bit what's in your heart, mm-hmm. and what gives you joy and what gets you out of bed in the morning. Both clinical physiotherapy, I remember saying to a patient once, they were saying to me that they were really struggling to go to work every day, that it was a real struggle to get up out of bed. And I said, it must be really hard to go to work every day. And they looked at me and they said, but don't you come to work every day? Yeah, but I love it. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that the challenge of leadership and that opportunity to see things more at that system level and how things work together, mm-hmm. was giving me the joy that I needed to be able to get up out of bed in the morning and really love what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I never actually went back to clinical physiotherapy after I transitioned. I just kept moving mm-hmm. on in that realm. And it's been a really good journey for me. There's no question.
Yeah, and it's so great how you mentioned, you loved going to work, because it's mm-hmm. so hard going to work when you don't enjoy it, waking up every day, especially during this past year. It's been so hard. So for you, in your current role, do you feel like you still have that love for your work, given everything that is happening around you, Donna?
I love it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. About a year ago, I had this opportunity to help out Ontario Health in the central region, as you identified, and it's been a tough year. I mean, there's no question the pandemic has made things really challenging. We had no idea what was ahead of us when we walked the hallways that we walked a year ago. We had no idea what we were going to face. We didn't understand the transmission of this virus. We didn't understand the impact it would have on long-term care homes and other congregate settings. It's been tough. It's been really tough. There's been tears in our household for sure, tears of frustration that maybe I wasn't able to get things done as quickly as I felt I needed to be able to. Tears of sadness about what was happening to people we were serving, and we just couldn't make a difference. But along with that has come incredible opportunities like we have never seen before in any time in healthcare. So pulling together people one weekend on a Saturday afternoon and saying, we need to increase 220 ICU beds. We need to figure it out. Like, we've got to get them online by Tuesday. And to get the ministry approvals and to get the providers agreeing to do it, to move human resources around and to do it between Saturday and Tuesday, unheard of. Like, it would never have even happened in years of work before. And we were doing it and you could talk about it in hours. And we were doing it because we were all focused on the same goal. It has been really quite life-changing from that perspective. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's been tough. It's been really tough, but it also comes with that positive piece, a piece of the system that we work in. This amazing health system in Ontario has so many amazing people working in it, whether they're primary care physicians or they're hospital administrators or mental health providers. It doesn't matter. Everybody in the system has just stepped up and done above and beyond. And of course, my view is a bit more on the system side of things. We do know that the people, the nurses and the physiotherapists and the occupational therapists, respiratory therapists have had to really take the brunt of this, along with our PSWs in our long-term care homes, and our nurses and our long-term care home administrators. They too have had to really, really look at things in a very different way. Right. So it's been challenging. It's been challenging, but it's been an opportunity for sure.
As you were highlighting the pros and the cons of this past year, it's shown us that our healthcare system can work so well if we have that, that focus, that vision, and we're all working together to that common cause. So how do we keep going this way? We don't lose that.
How are we going to be able to do that? Because what we've learned is to motivate change. That burning platform is actually a really important piece. You needed to have that burning platform. The other piece of it that we didn't have during the pandemic that I think we're going to need to think about is around the different incentives. What are the different incentives to be able to look at your community and define that community? Is that a local community, like a geographic area? Is it a community of people? But we may need to look at incentives in a different way than we have in the past, because we've got a lot of disincentives to coming together and working together. And sometimes when you put indicators in place and you start measuring those indicators, what you don't realize is that there's unintended consequences for some of those things. And you get where you want to go with the indicator, but you've left some things behind. And I think our system was full of that before. And this is a really neat opportunity for us to say, okay, how do we have that focus? Now, it will never be the same because we were really focused on the people who were experiencing COVID or who could get COVID. And we have left people behind as it relates to surgeries and some procedures, screening procedures and things like that. We need to bring that back. We need to get that back on the table. And I think that's, where we're at now in the pandemic. I think that's that opportunity. But I think we're going to have to be able to create that understanding of what we need to do. But I think it needs to be different incentives maybe than what we've had in the past.